Welcome to Creator's Head Studio. I'm Tom Arcu, feature film producer, director, screenwriter, and novelist.
And I'm John Colton, creator of ColtonComics.com and writer of Paul Bunyan versus Dracula.
In this episode, we're talking about, is Critical Drinker wrong about everything? Spoiler alert. No, but there's more to it.
He has his detractors,
Okay.
and some people think that he just trashes everything.
And we see what people say about Critical Drinker on our own channel, responding to one of our videos. We read the comments, and here are some Philly fun. 194 says, Critical Drinker was negative about a movie? I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you. Lust J 940 says, not sure why the Critical Drinker has a platform. He's pessimistic with everyone and everything. 503 McBee says, why would anyone think the Critical Drinker had anything useful at all? Don't tie yourself to a millstone before you go swimming.
90% of the stuff that he says is bad is because it has bad writing. Always critiquing the writing, the dialogue, the story,
Right.
characters doing things that don't make sense, inconsistencies in the plot.
Right.
There are those YouTube channels who do kind of trash everything. They'll trash everything that Kathleen Kennedy does, which is mostly fair.
Okay.
Especially if you're judging by the writing. But at the same time, again, this is something the drinker agree with. Andor is brilliantly written. It's a fantastic Star Wars show.
Okay.
And it's something that I wish more people had watched.
Okay.
But I think a lot of them were just burnt out, because they had so much bad Star Wars. By the time something really great came along, they were no longer interested.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what you intrigued me with was what Critical Drinker recommends. I mean, you jumped on it. He recommended Nosferatu, and pow, you're there. And we did a video on it.
Right. Well, and that first caught my attention with Top Gun Maverick.
Ah, okay.
That was, his first strong recommendation that caught my eye. And it was a movie I hadn't planned on going to see. But, given Tom Cruise's track record for making good movies, and then the drinker recommends, I was like, all right, I'll go see this. And I took the kids. We had a fantastic time. Terrific movie.
Yeah.
The whole theater was cheering.
Wow.
And, if you look, he kind of has a subsection of his channel, which is just the Critical Drinker recommends movies.
And you mentioned that he recommends Blade Runner, for example.
Right. Yeah, that's one of your faves.
It is. I mean, it's such a big favorite that there is the famous monologue, and I'm not going to perform it, but it has the parts in there where okay, spoiler alert, Rutger Hauer is playing a replicant who's dying, and I put it into one of my novels. I've written 4 novels on vampire hunting and dealing with shapeshifters, all that stuff, generally Storm. But I actually quote from Blade Runner that thing about, I've seen things you people would not believe. And it goes on.
I thought you weren't going to perform it.
Well, that was not a performance. You can definitely, in the comments below, you'll say that was not a performance. But the point is, it means so much to me that I put it into the novel, and I had a scene where a character is on the brink of going into another dimension, is going to basically die. And so another character knows the dialogue and stops him from saying that last part where it says, time to die. She's terrified that this guy who she loves is going to say time to die, and he's just going to be lost forever from her. And so talk about an Easter egg. If you know that thing from Blade Runner, then you know what's happening and you know how terrified she is. So this is what we do as artists. We can celebrate, we can homage to something, and we can then even create something different or build on something. So, but you were mentioning Andor, and it's too bad. I gave up on Disney Star Wars. So I will say that even though there were some flaws, when Luke appeared in I think the first season of The Mandalorian, when he appeared, this was exactly what we had all wished to have seen Luke do in the trilogy of Star Wars, the Rey trilogy. We wanted to see Luke
Right.
be a fully empowered Jedi and do his thing, and he does in the first season of Mandalorian. And so, but I gave up on Disney Star Wars after that.
Yeah, Mandalorian ended up being disappointing, I think, for
Hmm.
most fans.
Right.
And for myself, season one came out and I thought, oh, this is absolutely brilliant.
Hmm.
They're getting back to Star Wars being a sci-fi Western
Right.
and following the Western formula. And it's a show set in galaxies far away with all these aliens, but I thought they were going to basically do the TV show Wanted Dead or Alive.
Was Steve McQueen in that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that
Okay.
was the show that made Steve McQueen.
Well, there you go.
And Quentin Tarantino was also a huge fan.
Hmm.
He kind of did an homage to it
There we go.
in his movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Ah.
And that was basically the role that the Leonardo DiCaprio character was playing
Ah.
was Steve McQueen's role on that TV show.
Gotcha.
But for my money, Wanted Dead or Alive is one of the top five best written TV shows
Ah.
in the history of television
Gotcha.
because every episode is something brand new because he's got a brand new suspect that he's trying to arrest, and it's a brand
Right.
new case, and everyone has a twist.
Hmm.
And I thought, wow, if Mandalorian follows this formula,
Hmm.
we're going to be watching Mandalorian for 8 seasons, maybe
Right.
10.
Speaking of Critical Drinker, noticing that he does have his recommends, and you mentioned that he recommends the underrated 2010, which I got a lot
Right.
of appreciation for that. He also recommends what else? What does he recommend?
Dread, which is fantastic. Fight Club,
Hmm.
Unforgiven, which
Uh-huh.
is,
Up there
absolute
for
must
you.
watch
Okay.
for any cinema fan. And
Hmm.
Jaws,
I'm all over that. It's one of my top five favorite movies of all time.
Predator,
Good.
uh, Falling Down.
That makes a big statement, that film with Michael Douglas, right?
Yeah. And interestingly enough, directed by Joel Schumacher,
Wow. From
right?
falling all the way down to Batman and Robin. That's a serious falling down. Okay.
I
Hey,
guess so.
I feel a little bit like the Critical Drinker in that moment, taking a little shot there at Batman and Robin. You mentioned how he's a novelist. He's also has some films and things like that. And Chris Stuckman, he did something which was a very clear decision. He said, "Look, I'm going to back off. I am a filmmaker now, and I'm not interested in tearing other artists' work apart." That's an interesting thing. And Chris Stuckman is continuing. I watch Chris Stuckman stuff all the time, Jeremy Johns stuff all the time, and things
Hmm.
like that. Often a movie Bob, things like that. What Critical Drinker is doing right now is an art. To be an entertaining critic to over 2 million people, that is an art. The question is he going to find himself in a situation like Chris Stuckman, where he's going to say, am I going to be a full out critic or am I going to be an artist that makes film? I wonder what he's going to do.
It kind of reminds me of the old saying, you're one hit away from everybody saying they always knew you were going to make it.
Wow.
And
And you're one
I
flop away from saying, I always knew he was going to crash and burn.
right. But yeah, it's an interesting question. I definitely agree with you that there is an advanced skill set and an
Mhm.
art form
Mhm.
to being an insightful critic and to
Right.
giving valuable critical feedback and noticing all of the flaws in a piece of film or a book or novel or whatever. That is a skill set and it does add value to the marketplace and to the consumers.
It's great when you have a circle like I do. So before I did this film, it's an 8-minute film called Why, like asking the question why AI. And I went to about 12 people in my circle, and they all had something to criticize. And some of that criticism I implemented. For example, one of the people, I started off with narration, and they called the beginning of the rough cut wooden. So I went back and I shot new stuff because that's when the critical thing that a critical drinker, if I had a critical drinker in my circle, I'd say, check out this rough cut, and then I could do something about it. Some people have been making a big noise about that there are some reshoots for the new Superman debuting this year, July 11th. That's a magical date in my mind, July 11th, the new Superman. And they're saying reshoots. Well, no, if you're a filmmaker, you know that you're going to plan, and it's in contracts now with actors. You're going to plan to just call it continued shooting, not reshoots, but continued shooting, because you got to cut it together and see what you got. You really don't know what you got until you cut it together. And then you can augment it and things like that. YouTube influencers, basically, you get clicks by criticizing. Okay, I get it. But at the same time, as you were saying, that by having Critical Drinkers recommends, it's like he's saying, check this out. This is good. He is kind of an advocate for good work in his thoughts. So if you were going to advocate for some film, which film would you advocate for?
Reaching back into the archives, it would be The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
Jimmy Stewart.
John Wayne, Jimmy Stewart, Lee Marvin.
Oh, one of your favorites, Lee Marvin.
Yeah, and Woody Strode. It is absolute classic. It is one of those films that was shot in black and white during the color era.
Yeah, good plan. And that's artistic choice.
The director chose to shoot it in black and white because he knew there were things he wanted to do with the shadows that wouldn't have worked in a color film.
Yes, and here's the thing. So when I made a feature film, I chose to shoot in black and white. This main character was a Vietnam vet, and so the scenes that happen in Vietnam are shot in black and white. You've done something where you believe and I believe, and it's something that I celebrate. Sometimes people can actually say, if they're a friend of yours, they can say, and I'll say this right now, John, I'm proud of you, meaning I celebrate and I see what you've accomplished with Paul Bunyan versus Dracula. So you're the artist. Now, as an artist, you're putting it out in the world. So let's touch on that for a moment. Paul Bunyan versus Dracula.
Well, this is it.
Hey, there it is. Excellent. Yes.
So I think one of the things that makes us a little different from a lot of crowdfunding is the book is done.
Yes.
And I got the paper copy yesterday. We just launched a few hours ago, and I've been overwhelmed by the response. It's really been humbling. To see the support and how excited people are about the project and the idea. It's something that when you have an idea, you think, oh yeah, this is a good idea. Why has no one ever done this before? This would be great. But I'll tell you, before you push that launch button, you're a little nervous.
Well, sure.
Maybe not all the feedback is going to be positive. You never know. But you put it out there and you see what happens.
Absolutely. One of my favorite quotes, a gentleman who wrote a book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. I'm a speaker, so I don't usually indulge in certain words. Anyway, but he said basically criticism, and this is not an exact quote, but it's very close. Criticism is in the same measure as your impact. So people will criticize your successes. People will criticize your failures. People will criticize your actions. They'll criticize if you fail to act. Do the thing. And you've done it. You've done it. But why don't you hold that up again, and we'll also put it up as a graphic. But it's in your hand. There it is. Yeah. It's in your hand. Yeah. So we do invite people to join this opportunity. We appreciate your support of our channel right here. And we invite you to get that first edition, that collector's edition. And there are all these different things, including a special that is kind of an homage to the
the cover's a homage to a Todd McFarlane Batman cover that has always been one of my favorites. And,
excellent.
I thought, hey, Dracula is the original Batman.
So now let's pull this all together. We've been talking about, is Critical Drinker wrong about everything? We don't think so. We say no. And we do appreciate that he does say Critical Drinker recommends. In fact, we've taken action on that in terms of that John went and zoomed right off to Top Gun, Maverick, and also zoom right off to Nosferatu. And I thought he went a little easy on the Superman trailer. Try something new. try Paul Bunyan versus Dracula. Be one of the collectors of the first collector's edition, the first edition. And we're so glad that you're here. And we appreciate Critical Drinker, and we appreciate you. And we appreciate those folks who have already gotten some of our merchandise, Creator's Edge Studio. And so one of these days, I'm going to stop doing that. Take good care, and we'll catch you next time.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Tom.